The world often celebrates figures who embody piety and selflessness, elevating them to almost saintly status. We are drawn to narratives of sacrifice, especially when cloaked in religious devotion, as they inspire us to believe in the power of faith and altruism. But what happens when such devotion perpetuates suffering instead of alleviating it? When the very acts of piety we admire contribute to a cycle of pain and poverty. This is the heart of what I term the Teresa effect, a phenomenon that challenges our understanding of religious virtue. This effect, named after the controversial figure of Mother Teresa, highlights a troubling paradox. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that good intentions are not always enough. It questions how some religious leaders, despite immense influence and resources, fail to enact tangible improvements in the lives of their followers. Instead of fostering independence and growth, they often create a dependency that stifles true progress. Instead, they often reinforce a cycle of dependency where suffering becomes a perverse form of spiritual currency. This cycle benefits the institution but leaves the faithful in a perpetual state of need. This essay delves into the complex dynamics of faith, power, and societal well-being. It explores how religious devotion can sometimes mask systemic issues that need urgent attention. It scrutinizes the legacy of Mother Teresa not to denigrate her personal beliefs, but to expose the systemic issues her approach represents. By examining her work, we can better understand the broader implications of religious charity. By drawing parallels with other religious contexts, particularly in the Americas, we'll examine the uncomfortable truth that high religious adherence doesn't always translate into a better society. Often it can obscure the need for real structural change. It's time to move beyond blind faith and demand more from our spiritual leaders. We must hold them accountable for the tangible impact they have on their communities. True spiritual leadership should be measured by its impact on human welfare, not just the fervor of its pronouncements. Only then can we ensure that faith serves as a force for genuine good in the world. Mother Teresa, canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church, remains a deeply polarizing figure even years after her death. Her image, draped in the iconic white sari, evokes both reverence and unease, symbolizing a complex legacy that continues to spark debate. While her dedication to the poorest of the poor in Calcutta's slums earned her global admiration, a closer look at her practices reveals a troubling reality that many choose to overlook. Critics, myself included, have argued that Mother Teresa's brand of charity was intertwined with a perverse glorification of suffering rather than its alleviation. Her hospices, often lacking basic medical care, became places where the sick were left to endure agonizing deaths, their pain seen as a pathway to spiritual purity, rather than a condition to be treated. This approach, while seemingly compassionate on the surface, raises serious ethical questions about the true nature of her mission and the impact on those she claimed to help. Was Mother Teresa truly alleviating suffering? Or was she exploiting it to bolster a particular theological narrative that glorified pain and sacrifice? The answer, I believe, lies in understanding how suffering itself can be wielded as a tool of control, shaping perceptions and maintaining power within certain religious frameworks. The human need for meaning and solace is universal. Across cultures and continents, people seek comfort in times of distress, looking for answers to life's most profound questions. Religion, for many, provides this comfort, offering explanations for life's complexities and promises of a better hereafter. It serves as a guiding light, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times, yet this inherent vulnerability can be exploited. The very need for solace can be turned into a tool for control. Certain religious leaders, consciously or not, foster dependency by framing suffering as a virtue, a necessary trial on the path to salvation. They preach that enduring pain is a testament to one's faith. This creates a dangerous dynamic. The faithful are encouraged to accept their hardships without question, believing it brings them closer to the divine. The worse off individuals are, the more they are told to embrace their suffering, to see it as a sign of God's favor. This narrative can be deeply ingrained, making it difficult to break free from the cycle of dependency. This message resonates powerfully in impoverished communities where hope is a precious commodity. In places where material resources are scarce, spiritual promises become even more alluring. It allows religious leaders to amass influence, not by improving material conditions, but by controlling the narrative of suffering itself. They become gatekeepers of hope, wielding immense power over their followers. This is the perverse genius of the Teresa effect. It's a system where misery becomes a source of power and dependency is mistaken for spiritual devotion. It's a system where misery becomes a source of power and dependency is mistaken for spiritual devotion. The cycle continues, with suffering being both the currency and the product of this spiritual economy. Section 4. The Americas, where faith often trumps progress. The Americas, with their diverse religious landscape, provide a stark illustration of the Teresa effect in action. From the favelas of Brazil to the Bible Belt of the United States, there's a clear correlation between fervent religious belief and persistent social ills. Countries like Haiti and Guatemala, despite high rates of religious adherence, grapple with poverty, corruption, and inadequate healthcare. The Church, often the most powerful institution in these societies, wields immense influence yet fails to translate this into tangible improvements for its followers. This is not to say that faith itself is the problem. It's the manipulation of faith, the cynical exploitation of people's spiritual needs for political and economic gain, that perpetuates this cycle of suffering. Section 5. Switzerland versus the USA, a tale of two societies. To understand the disconnect between religious fervor and societal well-being, let's compare two seemingly disparate nations, Switzerland and the United States. Switzerland, known for its secularism and high standard of living, boasts low levels of religious participation. The United States, on the other hand, is a nation deeply enmeshed in religious belief, yet struggles with issues like poverty, crime, and social inequality. How can we explain this discrepancy? It challenges the notion that religious belief is inherently linked to moral behavior or societal progress. Switzerland's success suggests that factors like good governance, social safety nets, and a focus on education are far more effective in creating a just and prosperous society. Section 6. The illusion of morality when faith masks societal ills. One of the most insidious aspects of the Teresa effect is the way it creates an illusion of morality. By emphasizing personal piety and adherence to religious dogma, it deflects attention from systemic issues and societal failures. Poverty, for example, is often framed as a moral failing, a consequence of laziness or lack of faith, rather than a product of unequal economic systems. This allows those in power to abdicate responsibility for addressing root causes, instead offering prayers and platitudes as solutions. The result is a society where outward displays of faith mask deep-seated injustices. People are taught to seek solace in the afterlife, while their present circumstances remain mired in suffering. This is not faith, it's a dangerous delusion.